100 years. Well, to some of our younger members in the congregation today, I can only imagine that 100 years seems a terrible long time ago. Would you agree? Yeah. But you know what? It's actually not that long ago. Well, yes, it's a long time, but I wonder, is this a long time ago? Of the congregation here today, who knows of someone who's aged 100 or more? Oh, just 2 hands gone up. All right. I thought there might be more in the congregation. I know there's a lady who's in Care Choice Nursing Home and is bright as a button. And then I was hearing about another lady who's over 100 and who's attending a wedding today and who's very clear in her mind. So there you go. What am I trying to suggest is that it's actually not that long ago. 100 years ago is actually the lifetime of some of those living. They were actually around when these events happened. Several people in our community were alive back then. So, 100 years, what are we talking about today? Well, I took this photo, perhaps you saw it on Facebook. This is a new mural that's gone up on the wall just off Kent Street here in Clonakilty, and you can see the artists still at work there. They were spray painting it, getting it ready, and I call this one Peeking Out, because this is Michael Collins himself who's peeking out through the painting, as it were. And that was on Friday. They did actually manage to finish it, and there it is in all its glory. You can check it out. And there's the date, the 11th of July, 1921. 100 years ago. That's what we're remembering here in this town and right across Ireland. Remembering is very important, you know. Those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it. So says a famous Spanish philosopher called George Centenary. You know, it's very true. We can easily ignore our history and think, oh, we'll do better. But the threat is always there. If we don't learn from our past, then we can fall into the same mistakes. So here in Clonakilty, we have lots of helps to help us remember. Like Michael Collins' house on Emmett Square. And I took a little visit in there on Friday as well, just to see what it was like. I hadn't been in before. But as you go in, you'll get to see the house, how it's been made into a little museum. There's lots to read about the War of Independence. As I said, well over 2,000, about 2,500 people who were killed during those 2.5 years. And you know, it was the fear and suspicion and just trust was breaking down within society. Who was it safe to talk to anymore? They were really terrible days to have lived in, those who would have lived back then. But to help us remember, that's what this Michael Collins' house is all about. And these are some of the uniforms of the day, the black and tans on the left there, and then what those who oppose what was happening might have been wearing as well. And as I say, it might seem like a long time ago, but you will get to see some of the weaponry that was used in that war. Here are some of the rifles that were used, and here's a little handgun. There are some handcuffs there as well. These are originals that you can see in the museum. And again, it just helps us to remember. These events aren't just text written on a page somewhere. These things really happened. And it's terrible that they happened. And therefore we try to learn from it. You can see a copy there of the treaty that was signed 100 years ago. And if you go up to the top floor of the museum, you'll see this lovely model of Clonakilty town. And would you know, how many people here have actually been to see it? Yeah, that's a few. Very good. Well, maybe you happen to spot that we're in that model of Clonakilty town as well. Because we are part of the history of this town and a witness, hopefully, to Christ in this area of God's reconciling work through Jesus. So we're part of the history, but we don't want to repeat the horrors of that history, but to learn from it. And in our Bible reading today, it tells us that blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. Peacemakers, very, very important. You know, the thing about making peace is it takes work, and it takes a dedication and commitment. And when the truth finally came, and I have to thank Cal McCarthy in Michael Collins' house for helping me to find these things here. Listen to what one of the local papers said about Clonakilty on the Monday, which would have been the 12th of July in 1921. Since the signing of the truce agreement, matters in Clonakilty district have resumed to their normal conditions. There is a spirit of cheerfulness and truthfulness prevailing. The Crown forces fraternize with the general public and socially enjoy themselves. The restrictions on bicycles, motor cars and motorbikes have been removed. And also it is announced that the prohibition of fairs and markets in Clonakilty, which have been in operation for the past 12 months, has been withdrawn. There is every indication and prospect of a peaceful and happy solution to the whole question, and that peace and plenty are in store for this country. There you go. That gives us an idea of the celebrations that broke out 100 years ago, and kind of puts in mind a bit like we're recovering from COVID here, and we'd love for things to get back to normal. Well, I think we've got a lot in common actually with 100 years ago. They too were really wanting to get back to normal and to be able to get on with their lives, and the truce gave them that opportunity. Plenty and peace are in store for this country. And indeed, that is what God would want even today for our country. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Peacemakers. That actually takes a lot of energy and a lot of commitment. You're not just peace givers, you're peacemakers. And you work together to try and bring about resolution to conflict wherever it might be. The Bible tells us from Ephesians today that Jesus is our peace. Jesus is our peace. His purpose, coming to this earth, was to reconcile groups of people, the Jews and the Gentiles, to reconcile both of them to God through the cross. And the cross has come for all this world a symbol of peace with God and of peace with each other. And as you walk around Ireland, if you go around Ireland this summer, maybe some of you will head on up to the bridge that's up in Derry. And this is famously known as the Peace Bridge. Did anybody here happen to have walked across this bridge? No, I haven't either. But I hope to someday. And a bridge, you see, is a symbol of peace. In this case in Derry, linking two different troubled parts of that city. And making bridges is not easy, you know. Very difficult. It takes a lot of planning. I mean, look at this bridge here. It didn't just get thrown up overnight. There was a lot of planning and designing and putting it together. And that got me thinking, you know, peacemaking. Making peace is about making things and about making bridges. And I started to think to myself, what about if I was to make a bridge in church here this morning? Yeah? Well, those of you who are in church can probably see I've got some banana boxes here. Yeah, these are just ordinary banana boxes that I'd like to thank the local Lidl store for helping me out in getting them. And the plan is, I'm going to make a bridge here in church this morning, but it's probably a bit difficult. I might need some help. So I'm going to ask my daughter Rosanna, who's in our bubble, to come forward and help me as well. So these are just ordinary banana boxes, and what we're going to do this morning is hopefully make a bridge, and a bridge that's strong enough to even hold a horse. Do you believe me? a bridge strong enough to hold a horse, I'll take that silence as a sort of, well, I don't know about that, Kingsley. But you know, that's very often the case with building peace. Sometimes people say it's impossible. That's never going to happen. And people in this island of Ireland for centuries now have been praying earnestly for peace. Can it happen in our time? Well, if we remember our history and learn from our mistakes, then hopefully we can be peacemakers as well. Right, Rosanna? We better get building here or these people won't believe us, alright? So, if we, you take those boxes there, and we've got a few boxes each. 1, 2, 3, there we go. And I'll get this one ready here as well. And if I can manage to get this here. How you doing, Rosanna? You good? Alright. Can these stand up and make a bridge? Now, of course, the most important thing about a bridge is what goes in between here. And it's known as a keystone. Without a keystone here, this bridge cannot possibly stand. So I happen to have a keystone, which is this one here. But us as Christians, we believe that Jesus is the key. He's the one who can really bring about peace in all our lives, across sectarian divides and all divisions. Jesus is our peace that bridges us. Now, Rosanna, let's see if we can get this keystone in place and hope that it will stay up. Well, how about that? Oh, look at that. Now, there was one other thing we said we were going to do, wasn't it? Oh, can you remember what it was, Luke? We're going to get a horse to go over it. Isn't that right? Have we got a horse, Rosanna? You love horses. Will you go get a horse for us today? Uh-huh. What have we got? Hiding up in the pulpit? Is a horse! Yay! And hopefully we'll get the horse in place. Well, how about that? There, now, look at that. We have made a bridge with banana boxes that's strong enough to hold a horse, and you thought we couldn't do it. Well, let's, okay, we'll leave it at that for a moment. So what we're trying to say is building bridges, it's not easy. It takes a lot of time and effort. Being a peacemaker takes a lot of time and effort as well. But we're blessed if we do it. We'll be known as children of God. And we will be like Jesus, who is the Son of God, the Son of God. We'll be bringing peace between divisions and bringing hope. So what else can I say to you today? You know, the signs of conflict are still very present around these parts here. And I was told about this. This is up at Shannon Vale. There's a famous pub there. And if you see that mark on the wall, just on the left-hand side, I have been reliably told that this is actually the remains of a shot that was fired back in that troubled time by a rifle. And the mark is still in the wall for us to see today. This is what happened in our area. It was a terrible, fearful time. And that's why people were celebrating this day 100 years ago. The hope of conflict gone. But I also heard that the bridge in Shannonvale at one stage was actually, they tried to tear it down. It's not what I heard. I don't know how successful they were, but I do know it had to be repaired. But the thing about bridges, it takes a lot of effort. Better carefully put our horse, who's called Spirit, by the way, put our horse quietly aside there. It's one thing being able to build a bridge, but it's another thing, and it actually happens very quickly when somebody, up there, tear a bridge down. We must be very careful the words we use and the way we interact with our communities, using our words carefully, because we can destroy bridges of peace very, very easily. And here's another bridge that was destroyed. This one's up in Blessington. And again, okay, it might take a lot of effort to organize a bomb of some kind to destroy it, but once it's destroyed, it's terrible. Nobody can use the peace. I was thinking this morning, how many bridges did I cross this morning that I know of? Well, I know I crossed the Argentine River twice anyway, and if there was no bridge, there was no chance of me getting across. Bridges are very important physically in our world, and we need them. They help us to get places, but also in terms of bridges between people. We must respect and hopefully do the best we can to make bridges whenever they have been destroyed. Do you know, Rosanna, let's build this bridge again, will we? Come on up and we'll do it very, very quickly. And of course, the bridge that we remember most, of course, in the Bible is what Jesus has done for us through the cross. He has become the one who has helped us to connect again with God. And Jesus is that hope. He is the peace between us all. And as we try to reconstruct our bridge, we bring our keystone, Jesus, back into place. And can we do it, Rosanna? Just about. Good. We're hanging in there. We are. Do you want to put spirit back in there as well? We'll put our horse back in place. And it's funny that Rosanna called the horse spirit. You know, that's what a bridge does. It makes room for the spirit. It helps us to connect with people. But the cross is the chief place where Jesus and God connects with us. And Jesus encourages us to walk the way of the cross. What does that mean? It means doing God's will, not our own will. If you remember in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus prayed. He prayed earnestly, Father, your will be done, not mine. That's what it's like to take up the cross, is to follow God the Father's will, to love our enemy, even as we love ourselves, that God's love would prevail among us. And why do we get involved? Because this is what it means. Jesus didn't have to die on a cross, but he did, of course, because he loves us. And he was following the Father's will. He was dying to self and living to others. And that's what we as Christians are called to do. Building bridges, as we have been saying, it's not easy. And here's the thing. You build bridges, you may be prepared to get walked on. That's the hard part of building bridges. You can get walked on. People can misunderstand your motives, but you keep on going regardless, trying to bring peace, trying to draw people together, and trying to help people find faith in Jesus, the key to it all. Because when Jesus gets into our equation, there is hope. Then it's not just our way, it's God's way. And that's when everything can change. Jesus is the key to all of this. And then the blessing that comes from it, of course, is that you will be known to be like Jesus. You will be known as a son or as a daughter of God. So, 100 years ago, yeah, it may seem like a long way. But we remember today in the hope that we don't forget and repeat the mistakes of the past, but that we would remember to follow the way of the cross. We get involved and we become known then as sons and daughters of God. Let's bow our heads in prayer for a moment. Lord Jesus, thank you that you are our peace. You are the one who unites us in hope and in love and in joy. And as we celebrate the joy of this day 100 years ago, we celebrate today your resurrection. We celebrate your joy that you can bring into this world, into our day, into our time. So please bring your peace to bear upon our country again, for your sake and for your glory. Amen.